So just recognizing the control you do have in the situation and taking responsibility for that doesn't mean it's an easy decision to make, but you for sure don't have to. You don't have to pay your mortgage. You don't have to pay your bills. It is a choice. You can't know love without knowing a heartbreak. You can't enjoy having a great day without knowing what an awful day feels like. So it is kind of this dance of being a human and experiencing the contrast of those two. And so we are going to have bad days. It's the resistance to it that usually causes the damage. Oftentimes, people make a decision, something goes wrong, and then they just beat themselves up. But we're not robots, we're humans. We can only make an informed decision and then honor that and hope for the best.
Get ready for your unofficial dental hygiene podcast. These are the tales of two hygienists, one East Coast RDH and one West Coast hygienist. Listen as they tackle the profession of dental hygiene with humor and enthusiasm. Now, please join Michelle Strange and Andrew Johnston as they tell you a tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists, episode number 224. My name is Andrew.
And this is Michelle. Holy moly, 224. I cannot believe it. I think I say that every time, but just the number is bonkers to me.
It's like you don't know how to count. Like, that's the next number, Michelle. 224 comes after 223.
Just the fact that we've done this more than 224 times is amazing to me. But anywho, welcome to our little dental hygiene podcast. If you're just tuning in for the first time, we're really glad you're here. And
can I say, though, we screwed that up. We really
What?
did. It's not a dental hygiene podcast. We got to quit saying that. It is a dental podcast
by the hygienist.
by hygienists. But I mean, think about the stuff that we cover.
Well, it's not even dental in a lot of ways. It's a full body
Yeah.
systemic podcast. Yeah.
We are a medical advice. No, we're not. Do that.
Oh God, don't. Our lawyers would be like, this does not constitute medical advice. Please don't listen to those fools
Yeah.
telling you anything.
Oh, man.
Well, you're right. We are a dental podcast that dabbles in all things medical and life, really.
Yeah.
We've had some such amazing guests. So if you haven't already, check all those out. You can also get CE credit for a lot of these. And some of those CE credits will be expiring soon because they were done over a year ago or at a year. So go take advantage of those self-study CEs. But we're glad you're here nonetheless.
Yeah.
Hanging
for
out
real.
with us.
For real.
So-
It's been, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just say it's been a week, man. It's been a week.
So I was saying this on Friday to two people, one of them being Machele Galloway, who is our guest today, because she's my coach and I talk to her every week. And I was saying how each week for me, I have felt a different emotion, not my own, but like in the world, like an accumulative emotion. And a lot of it was, and it all kind of, and I was trying to go back to like, where did I start noticing this? And it was like the first week that everybody couldn't get masks, but they were still seeing patients. And then it was like the next week was everybody couldn't, they were starting to shut down, where it was like half and half. And then the next week was like, all right, now we're all shutting down. Holy crap, what are we doing? Then it went to unemployment. And then it went to like settling in and, figuring it out. And then it's like, the grief process really started.
I was just going to say, this sounds like stages.
And then you saw like the anger around it and denial that it's even happening and even a problem. Like, it's just been really interesting. This week for me was a lot of chaos. It was just a lot of, I don't know, just things like, okay, well, if we don't get it done this week, it's not going to get done. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I don't know where that was all coming from, but
I'm sure it was coming from me being like, hey, by the way, if we don't get this done,
we're going to do a 3-hour webinar. No big deal.
And you got this, buddy. You're so good at it. Keep going. Oh, by the way, so we put in a fence, right? That's been our big project for this last week. And I used that exact same thing that you told me. You're like, I was like, Michelle, you do great at this. And then your response was like, you're going to keep saying that, so I keep doing it. And I'm like, yeah, basically. And so then like when there's a bunch of like digging out of like underneath the fences, Mike was like, wow, Andrew, you're so good at this. Oh, and you're so strong and you're funny and you're handsome. You got this, man. I'm like, I see what I do that to Michelle. I see what's going on.
I was like, don't flatter me so I keep doing this.
All the hard manual back-breaking labor. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Clever.
This week was, just a lot of interesting things that I was seeing in the world. And I don't know. How are you feeling this week?
Well, I feel like I was disconnected this week from the world and internets and things like that. And trying to kind of help run this business with you and taking out like personal time to do like work on the fence and do all these things, because it was like one day it was like a 12-hour day. Like we were literally outside for 12 hours doing all the stuff. I feel guilty, actually. I feel a little bit like I haven't really been there for, the audience. I haven't really been there for you. I haven't really been there for, Brittany and just the company. So I don't really have a connection to the world. So I don't really have an opinion on that. I feel a little bit let down. I feel like I'm letting people down is what I mean to say.
I get that emotion, but I think it's also ridiculous because you 2 weeks ago let me check out so I could get this huge presentation done and I was not involved in anything. So I feel like that's just the name of the game, where when we have things, that's why it's so nice to have partners in this and also amazing people that help us on the back end.
Yeah, no, for sure. We do have an amazing crew, and that CE course that we put on, I mean, I don't know if you've read all of the survey results, but it was incredibly overwhelming. Was that Lola Bear?
That was Lola Bear.
Freaking
so we currently have a storm happening. Lola has some pretty decent.
Is that a cat?
No, that was her. I actually don't know what it is that she's doing. It's kind of like a cough sneeze, but I think it's like anxiety.
That's a noise. That's an interesting noise.
Been real fun podcasting with her the last few hours in her state of anxiety over the storm that's happening right now.
Well, interesting. Anyway, so back to the survey results. Yeah, everyone was really, really cool Frank did a really good job. You guys are going to hear coming up some ad time with our speaker for the suicide prevention course. His name is Frank King. He's a comedian. He put on this course for us. He did a phenomenal job. Everyone loved it. But he did us a huge favor because we have requirements in our state in Washington to take this course. And since everyone's been out of work, no one can really afford to pay the CE. And we were going to have it with our state hygiene association, but that was supposed to be this past weekend, and it obviously didn't happen. Like everyone was scrambling, and he just did a really good job of coming. He really bailed us out. So you guys will hear that. Hopefully, if you guys need that, you will take advantage of his course that he's going to be given.
Yeah. And, this week, we'll look at what could be useful for you guys right now in these times. So we brought Machele Galloway on because, again, we were going to have this whole month dedicated to oral cancer and oral cancer awareness and things like that. And we decided to pivot a little bit and bring you information. So, we had last week Reson telling you guys about, the accounting and financial advice side of things. And this week, Michelle's going to come on and talk to us about like how we can control our thoughts or even identify them, just become more aware of them and have a little bit more control in our life. And, I think, sadly, I think some states are going to be getting back to normal in a few weeks. And I say sadly, not in I know the economy, all of us need to get back to normal, but at the same time, like we haven't even hit peak in South Carolina, according to the experts. So I'm like, oh, really? We're going back to normal. Okay. All right. So I think now we're going to be in another stage of this where it's like, we weren't sure if we were going to close. Now we're closing, getting a new routine. And now we're like, are we going back? Are we not going back? What does that fear look like? And so Machele kind of gives us a lot of great advice on how to identify that and work through those thoughts and get real curious about them.
Yeah, she does a great job. And I really appreciate her and all the work that she does. A quick heads up. There is some funky editing going on in this show. During the recording process, I was getting some information that I was having some feelings about that was not good, nor was it accurate and complete information. So I actually had to take that part out. That way I don't get myself in trouble. So sorry that the ideas jump around a little bit. So heads up on that.
All right. Well, thanks for that heads up. And we do hope you all enjoy this episode with Machele Galloway.
Hey, Machele.
Yeah.
It's time for the interview.
Oh, but I had something else to say.
We need to let the experts talk now.
Fine.
So listeners, I'm really excited because this is a conversation I probably have every week on my own with my amazing coach, Machele Galloway. And she is on here with us. Andrew and I know Machele from the dental world because she worked for RDH Mag, well, an Endeavor. And we love her so much. And then she diverged and went down this other path and journey. And then I was lucky enough to hire her. And she is the reason that Andrew can still work with me to this day.
True. So true.
Machele, welcome. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So I am a certified life coach and I work with clients one-on-one virtually through Zoom. And yeah, Machele was one of my first clients when I started doing this. And we've worked together the longest. A lot of fun.
Oh, yay. You know what? I just remembered though, you've been on the podcast. You were my co-host for the Mentor podcast episode. We had the Misha Mash show.
Right. Yeah, that was at RDH Evolution.
Yes. Yeah. So that was about 2 years ago. I think I just got that on my time hop feed that was 2 years ago.
Isn't that funny?
It is. It's so great. So tell us a little bit about like what you're doing with clients, and then we can kind of get into why this is relevant for all the emotions we're feeling right now and during this time.
I focus on time management is kind of my niche, like showing people how to get more accomplished in less time. But it's really never about the time, as you and I like discover each week. I mean, there is a framework to it, but it's a lot of like emotional drama that goes with it. So I primarily focus on that, but I do have just general life coaching clients as well. And my new clients are coming to me kind of like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. I'm going to lose everything. And kind of with this sense of panic. And it's interesting because the biggest difference I see between like my existing clients, how they're handling this, and the new clients is, if I had to boil it down, it comes down to a sense of control. Like my existing clients have that sense of control where the new clients do not. They're like, help me figure out how to deal with all of this that I can't control. And so that's the biggest thing I'm working on right now with my newer clients.
What I appreciate about Machele's coaching is that she doesn't let you say something and move past it. More times than not, we've started our coaching sessions and I might say something kind of flippantly about something. She's like, nah, and let's sit on that one for, I'm like, but no, we're doing spreadsheets today. And we're like, no.
Yeah, it is.
We're going to talk about that. It's so good.
We'll be in the middle of mapping out your week and you're just like, blah, blah, blah. And I go, whoa. Wait. What
was that you just said?
Yeah.
So it's been really great. Andrew, do you have any questions before we get into it? Because I feel like this is another coaching session for me. So I want to make sure that the people who don't know and experience Machele's coaching kind of get all their answers.
Well, I don't currently have any questions. I do want to circle back a little bit to that control thing, though, because I feel like that is very much not like, that's not just localized to the problems that we're having now, right? I feel like that's a thing that people have every day in all walks of life, not just dentistry.
Yeah, but there's a false sense of control typically. Like people think if their schedule's a certain way and they do certain things and they don't do certain things that they have certainty over what's going to happen in their future. And we kind of never really had that. We think we do, but we don't really have control of anything outside of us. And so now we're just reminded of that. So I think people that were kind of teetering on the edge of like barely having control over their life, they're now like, oh no, this is really out of my control. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a wake up call too. I feel like we were talking a little bit before we went on air, like about, how we personally are doing. And I feel like this is a great opportunity though, to help those people reset and help understand priorities. And I feel like there's an opportunity here that people should really be taking to get themselves right.
1000%. It's impossible not to reevaluate your life during this. A lot of people run from their problems. They kind of hide from their problems with work, like overworking and staying super busy. It's just so they can kind of numb out a little bit. And if you don't have a job right now, you don't have that escape. So you're kind of faced with that shadow, so to speak. And so that's kind of coming to the surface. And it is like the universe is almost handing everyone a little boot camp. Like, what was your problem before this? And why don't you master it now? Right?
I love it.
It's true.
For sure.
It's true. And, and we did a survey to get everyone's kind of thoughts and like fears, essentially, of like what's going on right now. And a lot of them were, well, at least when I read through, the ones that stuck out to me was, my health is now in the hands of somebody that might not be making a lot of right ethical decisions. And when they come back, like if the employers are going to, provide the proper stuff for them, and they were just really afraid of their health, and they see now that they had very little control. And like, I guess maybe that goes with what you said, that you thought you had the control because you show up to work, but you show up to work and someone else is really controlling your PPE and what you can, how you're going to protect yourself.
Yeah. And so I think regardless of where everyone is right now, whether they're employed or still practicing, if that's still a thing, regardless of where they are, the best thing to do is to sit down and get really clear on what the actual circumstances are, like the neutral, factual circumstances. And I have to go work in a practice that isn't practicing infection control. That is not a fact. That's not a circumstance. You do not have to go to the practice. You can totally choose to stay home. So just recognizing the control you do have in the situation and taking responsibility for that doesn't mean it's an easy decision to make, but you for sure don't have to. You don't have to pay your mortgage. You don't have to pay your bills. It is a choice.
So one of the things that I had struggled with, like the thing that you were teaching me has really resonated at this time. And that was always that I never felt comfortable being an entrepreneur. Like that was never my life goal. Right. We've said this on the podcast a few times, like being an entrepreneur makes me super uncomfortable. And I've had that false sense of security being a W-2 employee. And that has never been more obvious than it is right now, that was a false sense of security, because a lot of people have lost their jobs that were W-2. And I'm still working. I'm still hustling and working on my business and the business that Andrew and I have together. And I think as much as this is identifying things that you don't have control over and you're trying to get a hold of, it's also, I guess, showing all the things that I once thought were false that are actually, those are the truths though.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting because we all have these belief systems, and whether that is bad things always happen to me, I'm going to lose everything I own now that I'm not employed, I can't run my own business. Those belief systems aren't really the biggest problem. The biggest problem is we hold on to those for dear life and fight for them. And they do not serve us in any way, shape, or form. So if you have a belief that you got laid off and it's going to cause you to lose everything, the way you show up in your life will essentially guarantee that happens. Because if you come from a frantic energy, you're not going to make future decisions that are good for your future. If you just kind of think like when you feel frantic, how do you typically show up?
A freaking mess.
Yeah, all over the place.
Like a tornado, like Tasmanian devil. Andrew's experienced that.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so it's really helpful to recognize, like, how am I interpreting my circumstances? Are these even true? And what are these creating for me? Because you can take the same exact circumstance of someone losing their job and making it mean they're going to lose everything. And then they show up that way. It's going to create some disastrous results for them. And another person in the same situation loses their job and they look at it like, you know what? I've wanted to do something different for the last 5-10 years. I'm going to figure out how to pull this off. Why not now? And that will create a completely different set of results for that person, even with the same exact circumstance.
One of the things that you and I go through are fact or feeling kind of thing.
Fact or thought.
And or fact or thought. Thank you. And I heard on a podcast the other day, Whitney Cummings, actually, she was like, feelings are not facts. And I was like, oh, Machele.
Oh, that's funny. Whitney.
So true. Whitney Cummings, because I think they've gone to like AA and she's dealt with addiction. And I think that's some of the things that they talk about in recovery programs. Is this a feeling or is this a fact? Like, is this a real life issue? And you and I do this all the time where when I'm like spiraling out over something, you're like, listen, brain dump and label. Is it a fact? Or is this really happening? Have you really not been able to pay your bills? Or is this a feeling like you're going to lose everything? I'm like, well, that's not the fact. You're not going to lose everything kind of thing. And I think that's been super helpful for me to identify when I am starting to spiral out. And even though I'm not great at it, I am still able to go, all right, that's just a feeling. You can get in control of this. And it has really helped me pull myself out of like all the insecurities that I've like created and all the feelings I've created and the belief systems from childhood on. Like, it's been really nice. Andrew, does that make sense? Factor feeling?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. It's very basic. I do this with a lot of my clients, and it's very annoying when you see a thought that is a thought, but you really want to hold on to it, even though it is disastrous.
Yeah.
Like, I'm never good at finishing a task. I have clients who hold on to that for dear life. And I'm like, we can't take a blood test and prove that that is just part of who you are. It's a habit that you can unlearn. So it's very fun. And it's very basic to just really differentiate between thought and fact. What's going on here?
So, like, what are some common things that you're running through with your clients or advice that you're giving out? And one thing also, everyone needs to go, we're going to have Michelle's email in here. You should subscribe to her newsletter because she sends out one every week and it's amazing. It's fabulous.
It is actually a really good one. I think I've actually referenced it a couple times. Like, Michelle, you need to make sure you're reading the email from Michelle.
Oh, that's
and I'm like,
funny.
dude, I get one-on-one with her.
Well,
but I have sent it to others too.
Yeah, it's fun. It was so uncomfortable for me in the beginning. Now I just kind of roll with it. But now I think we're all collectively getting to a place like, okay, this is kind of what's going on. And we're probably going to be in this mode for a hot minute. So let's now focus on accepting what's going on instead of arguing with reality. Accept, like, we're in a national pandemic, probably not leaving my house again anytime soon. And then so accept what's going on and then adapt. And like you and I have talked about, like, the morning routine. So how can we adapt the morning routine based on this new normal? How do we want to show up in this time? And how can we set like a solid foundation in the morning to help ground yourself is so important right now. So important.
So Andrew, like, let's try to do a little work through with Andrew.
Oh, fun. Let's roll.
So I just got an email and I'm having some reactions.
Oh, how
like
fun.
as we've been talking. So sorry that I've been like looking at my phone because I'm like distant, but like
I was about to yell at you and be like, pay attention.
What?
But obviously,
oh my God,
there's
so
something
pissed.
happening over there.
Okay, so this is the problem. I think there's
like how ridiculous it is.
I think there's a way
Yeah.
for me to do that, but I can't say it on the podcast. I definitely would not have a job after I said it out loud.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you look at your circumstance and go, okay, my immediate default reaction is that I am furious because of ABC. And just hang out in that space. It's not about being happy about everything. It's just recognizing that there is another way to interpret it and give yourself those options to play around with, because you're the one that feels the anger, not them.
Oh yeah, they don't give a crap.
Yeah.
They don't give a crap.
Yeah. They're like, he's on his way to become a millionaire podcaster. He's going to drop us in
All that hot podcasting money that we don't have.
Yeah.
Living at number 890 on the American charts under sciences.
Oh.
I don't actually know what's
Giving out our
I don't know what
details.
stat we are. Natural science, I think we're
I
like
was gonna
92 at one point. So I don't know.
We were number one for a week.
It's
No,
awesome.
we weren't number one. We were on the hot and trending. But whatever.
Number one on hot and trending.
Okay. That's not.
That's a thought, and it's a good one. It makes her feel good. Let her have that thought.
But it's not factual though. That's the thing. Is it fact? Or is
It's
it
number one on the hot
thought?
and trending one.
And the fact is, the numbers stay.
This is where Andrew's disc assessment is coming out.
I might have to do like a group coaching session here. I've never done that, like a couples session.
Oh my gosh. You know what though, honestly, and this is
You'd have to charge us so much money. We would drive you crazy.
well, she'd be filthy rich after fixing this. But you know what, the funny thing is too, Machele, this is exactly how I run though. So you've helped me kind of process a little bit, you know, it's the start. I will have to do some more processing, obviously.
Sure.
But now my head is clear and now I can think again and now I can like pay attention to this podcast a little bit more. It's funny because I actually do that pretty quickly normally, with not as well without you, but I run hot really quick. But then I'm like, okay, all right, I'm over it. There's nothing that can
cool off quick.
Yeah.
That's fun.
He's very good about like moving on and letting it go.
That is a good skill to have for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how to facilitate that quicker. You know, I don't have the tools to be able to do that though. And I don't think most people do.
Yeah. And sometimes like life isn't all about being happy 100% of the time. It would be pretty boring if it was like always 70 and sunny and everything was Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and everyone's whistling,
that
right?
Sounds a little cold still. You know, like 90 and sunny, but like, yeah, I know what you mean.
99. But, you know, life is 50-50. It's good and bad. Like you can't know love without knowing a heartbreak. You can't enjoy having a great day without knowing what an awful day feels like. So it is kind of this dance of being a human and experiencing the contrast of those two. And so we are going to have bad days. It's the resistance to it that usually causes the damage. Like, and let me give you an example. So Sunday, I had a pretty funky day. I typically don't watch the news. I give myself like 30 minutes a day. And so Sunday is my like shut it down day. And I had a lot of time on my hands, a lot of time to think. And there obviously are some very sad things going on in the world. And I was like, oh, so this is going to be one of those days where I just hold space for my humanness and let myself feel all of those emotions. And I will tell you, my go-to in the past would have been to grab a bucket of queso, some chips. And I'm sorry that I always talk about queso.
Because it's amazing.
Right. But my normal go-to with a day like that before I learned all this would be like, oh, perfect. I'm going to eat my way through this. I'm not going to feel this sadness because it doesn't feel good. But then I end up compounding a bad day because then I wake up the next morning feeling awful. And even just physically awful. And then I beat myself up for that. And it's this whole vicious cycle where just like going, okay, I'm going to let myself have kind of a sad, somber day here. And there are some sad things going on right now. And I think there is a need to hold space for that, but not indulge in it, if that makes sense.
No, I think it makes perfect sense. Do you find though that like, it's not always the situation that people get mad at, but sometimes it's the delivery of said situation?
No, it's always their thought about the situation every single time. Yeah, every single time.
Interesting.
Because someone's delivery could be totally fine, like to me, right? But you have a hard time with the delivery. Is that like, because everyone's perspective of delivery is different, right?
Totally. Yeah, so I'm trying to think of a good example here. So being locked in your house. Some people are like, hell yes, I can wear pajama pants and not have to get dressed for God knows how long. And I love being home. So I'm down for that. Other people are like, I am going to lose my mind. I'm not going to be able to see other humans. We're all having very different reactions to the same exact set of circumstances. And the only difference is our thoughts about what's going on.
Because an example that I have that happened to me the other day, someone texts me and, you know, we're joking right now about the DISC assessment. Corey's done this with quite a few of my friends now. And, you know, there's a lot of D dominant personalities that are just like, give me the information. And my friend texts me and she's like, hey, I need this X, Y, and Z, like right now. This has changed. And I was like, oh, bummer. All right. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, that was my D that came out. How are you? I hope you're fine. I was like, I'm doing the shit you just told me I need to do right now. Like, I don't have time for your pleasantry. But like, the situation sucks. Something changed. But her delivery to me was perfectly fine. I was like, shit, that sucks. Like, that, okay, but we're going to move on from it. Whereas someone else who needs the pleasantries would have been totally upset by that delivery and also upset about the situation.
Yeah, and we're all looking at life through our own unique lens. So if I have like a deep belief that people never respect me, or I'm not important, or I'm not worthy, then every situation that comes into my little circle, I'm going to be looking at it with that lens. So let's say I'm texting with a friend and they just stop responding. And if I have that deep belief that nobody cares about me or whatever, I'm going to go, oh my God, see, even my best friend doesn't even respond to me. And she's like, what are you talking about? I literally went shopping. What is going on?
Yeah.
Right.
I fell asleep. I took a nap.
Yeah, totally. And I did that in my 20s a lot. I was a hot mess of a friend, like my poor friends. I don't know how they made it through. They didn't all make it through, but I don't know how they did, because I would read so much into things and they're like, what are you talking about? And it's only because I interpret it that way, where like if it were Michelle, she'd be like, oh, okay, so they're probably busy now. No big deal. Right?
Yeah. And I think that holds true in a lot of relationships. And what's interesting, I think about that, and tell me if I'm incorrect in seeing it this way, but like that would be different for me in a dating relationship versus a friendship relationship, depending on the lens that I have. Like if I always had really good relationships with my friends, I probably wouldn't maybe put so much burden on them to be that better friend. But if I've had terrible relationships in the past and they don't respond to me in a text message, I'm making that assumption, like I'm not holding.
Totally.
I don't have the same lens for, even though it's the same text message coming through.
Yeah.
Just because it's coming from a significant other versus a friend, I have a different perspective over it.
Yeah. Because if you have a belief that men always betray me, or I can't trust men, everything you look at will be judged through that lens. So the guy could have his phone stolen and you're like, here we go again, right? And you're off not you, but anyone spinning out about something like that.
Yeah.
And so our thoughts always create our results, always.
I would like to talk more about Michelle's dating life and what a hot mess that is.
We've gone through my daddy issues and all that before.
Michelle has come so far. I have so much fun with Michelle. So fun.
It's the best hour of my week. It really is.
What's interesting is I really appreciate that she has you to help her with this, because Michelle and I have been doing this since 2015, right? So going on 5 years, whatever. I know next to nothing about her personal life.
Oh, really?
I've never been to Charleston.
That is not 100% true.
I don't know. I know a lot of the relationships she has, but I don't know most of them. I know one friend. Shout out to KP. I don't.
But you live in Washington, like
right.
you're across the country.
But I think that's an interesting thing, though, because our relationship, like the way that we work, has zero to do with almost anything to do other than work. Like you just learned my kids' names 2 years ago. Like that's.
That's not.
You knew.
That's also because I'm terrible at names.
You knew my dog's name day
I knew
one.
like 3 of them.
But the kids.
Well, I mean, it's a dog, so they're the important things in the world.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah, but it's so interesting funny. Though. I feel like we don't. There's a way that we work together. And it's very much business, but yeah.
But I don't think that that's completely fair, because even though you might not know my girlfriend Lindsay and Stephanie, who I will drink wine with and go to the beach with, you still. Yeah, write those down. But we have very in-depth, like it doesn't really matter who I'm applying this issue with a friend. Like we're talking about very in-depth, deep stuff. So, and I'll be very frank. Like I think you and I are pretty honest on this podcast. Like last year when I was having a lot of mental struggles with everything being chaotic and out of control in my life, I was like, Andrew, we need to separate. I need to be gone. I need to be, doing my own thing. I was like, peace the hell out. And you said very blank to me, like, I am not going to be that guy that you push away in your life because you have that habit and I'm not going to be that. And that meant a lot to me. Like, you don't need to know the guys' names of the people that I push away. There exist and these habits of mine. You don't need to put a name on that. And I think knowing the foundation of like who I am and my habits sometimes, and our friendship being deep enough that you can call me out on that and I can go, we'll bleep this. I don't like that you said that, but it's the truth. I think that's so much more in depth and deeper than any of the other, I might go out and hang out with my friends on, and have happy hour with them. You don't need to know their names.
I love you, buddy.
Aww. I thought we were going to have an emotional moment.
We're going to bleep
Those
that
don't
love you, buddy
happen
part
often.
out too.
Yeah. But also Michelle has helped me through that. And this is why I think people need to reach out to someone like Michelle and get her help to work, because, you very much did that whole pro and con. Here's how this is going to show up for you if you do it this way. Here's how it's going to show up for you if you do it this way. And, having that ability to look at almost the dichotomy of do I push Andrew out of my life or do I keep Andrew in my life? And I'm like, oh my God, obviously I want to keep Andrew in my life. Why am I being such an emotional basket case about this? This is insane. Okay, now I can be rational.
Yeah, I think that was our first session, right? That's when we first started working together. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. I was going to say, but I think I was not there in a place where I could identify that and have that rational write down, here's the pros, here's the cons, because no one's taught me that either.
Well, yeah. And we're so caught up in our own lives. We can't really see it objectively. The whole fish doesn't really know it's in water thing. And a fun example for me, which I've never really talked about this is kind of funny. So when I made the decision to leave my last job, which was a difficult decision, it was not one I took lightly. And I have a life coach, and there was no part of my freaking brain that could see, I was convinced that leaving this next phase would be significantly harder. And I was like, I just don't know if I'm up for that kind of fight. I just don't know if I can take harder. And I couldn't see that wasn't true. And my life coach is like, what if the next phase is actually easier? And I was like, what? Wait, no. I was like, wait, that's possible? I was like, I'm pretty sure that's not possible. And I couldn't even honestly get to that place on my own. And I coach myself a lot. I am on it. And I still couldn't even really wrap my head around seeing that neutrally. And so it really helped to have someone go, no, here's where you're missing it. Here's where you're missing the mark.
I think that it's also very important for our listeners to understand, I'm just now learning that you guys had these conversations. This is the first, Machele Galloway and we're friends, I would say. We message back and forth and things like that. I never knew. So there's a. Oh, really? Yeah, I knew that you guys were talking. I didn't know that there was talking about that. I didn't know the first conversation was about the business, all that stuff too. So anyways, the whole point is I really hope our listeners understand that there's a trust level they can put in you because of that, because it's confidential. You're just going to really help them. Oh yeah. It's a vault. It is an absolute vault. And I have a bad memory, so that works out. Yeah. But and even for you, and especially right now, if ever there's a time to reevaluate your life and what it means to have this opportunity to be a human and live this life that we never know how long lasts, if ever there's a time to evaluate that and what that means to you, it's now, because we're kind of faced with it, and we can work hard and we can have those accomplishments. But at the end of the day, if we don't love ourselves and if we don't feel fulfilled in our lives, none of the accomplishments are ever going to change that. Yeah, it's an inside job 100%. And life is short. Not to get too woo-woo, but life is very short. It really is, especially when you're sad or upset or handling things well and just kind of spiraling out. And, I think that this time where we are feeling so uncertain and it doesn't feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, despite what Trump says. Yeah. There's a light. I don't know if there is right now, buddy, but I just feel like this is the time for us to, those fears, the one fear we saw in that survey a lot was a fear of getting ill and making their family sick. And so how would you work through that process of being ill? Yeah. So we can tackle it a few ways. So one is the fear of getting ill. Certainly a valid fear. So really what you have to do is gather the evidence that is available to you and make the best decision you can and have your own back with that decision. And for you, it just depends on what it looks like in each person's family, right? For me, I'm just not leaving my house. Just not going to. That's a decision I'm going to make. I'd much rather be too careful than not careful enough.
And I'm just going to roll with that and hope for the best. And if the evidence in the world changes, then you can change your decision. But oftentimes people make a decision, something goes wrong, and then they just beat themselves up. But we're not robots, we're humans. We can only make an informed decision and then honor that and hope for the best. And that's what I would say as far as being afraid of being sick, like have firm boundaries on what you do and don't do and just honor them. And if the evidence changes, then adapt.
How do you manage the adapting? Because I feel like the beating up gets, and this is something I work on with you a lot. And, I beat myself up a lot about things. My neighbor is here and she actually is bringing me groceries, which is really sweet. But I will be washing everything 1 million times.
Leave it at the door, lady. Don't come in.
Leave it at the door. Yeah. Talk about the circumstances of not getting ill.
Yeah. So that is a consistent theme. Everybody is really mean to themselves. And even when they don't realize it, I'm like, why are you thinking about things like this? That is such an awful thing to think about yourself. And they're like, what? Doesn't everybody? Isn't this the only option? But there is zero upside in beating yourself up over anything. So if you make a decision, you take the facts, let's just play with an example. Let's say you take the facts and you go, okay, my decision is I'm going to keep my family home and maybe I'm going to let my kid go play with his friend. Who knows, right? So let's just play with that. And let's say somehow the kid's friend gets sick and then you start freaking out. So you can go one of two ways. You can beat yourself up. You should have known better, you idiot. You shouldn't have let your son go over there and do that whole fun little game. Or you can say, I'm a human. I made the best decision. I made the decision I thought was best for my family. And it turns out it wasn't. And we'll figure it out as we go along here. But the beating up has zero upside. And it is a choice. It does not feel like a choice. It's a choice.
God, that's so true. That's such, and that's the thing that I'm coming to terms with is, I have the decision to either, and I'm not making the decision always, like I'm still spiraling out sometimes. Right. But for me, it's more of like, now I'm aware of it. Cause even it was actually this morning I had a call. And before that I was like, this ain't going to go well. I can just see this. And I was like playing this scenario in my head and then it went well. And I was like, why did you do that to yourself this morning? And just now I'm at least identifying the behavior. I'm not correcting it just yet, but I'm
the first step is awareness for sure.
I can identify it and be like, why did you have that? Like you woke up in a mood because you knew that this call was going to happen and you were just like on guard to tell somebody about themselves. And afterwards it was like totally fine and worked out great. And I'm like, what, why, Michelle? And I think it doesn't happen as often. Like I definitely can see it and I can almost pull myself out. But even when I obviously didn't pull myself out until after the call, but I was like, dang. But I'm like, that's fine. At least I identified it and I can move on now.
Yeah. And everybody does that. And we don't even realize how our beliefs about ourselves, how damaging those are. Even if it's like, you're an idiot, you have no willpower, you're too lazy, all you do is procrastinate. And if you think of the energy those thoughts create in you, you're going to show up in a way that perpetuates that. It becomes reality over and over and over. Because you can even try to take action. So this is a good example. So let's say I have a thought that I never finish any project. And so I'm like, I want to fix this. So I'm going to Google how to finish projects, right? So I'm going to get all these actions. So if I do all these things, I'll finish projects. So I put those all into place. One thing goes wrong and my brain goes, nope, you never finish them. See, forget it. And you just shut it down. That's how that thought, even if you change your actions, you can self-sabotage if you still have that belief. And that's why you never move the needle when you're trying to make these big changes in your life, because you're swimming against the current. Does that make sense, or was that too coachy?
No, it makes a lot of sense.
Andrew's asleep. That's the only reason No.
Well, I was just thinking, I was trying to figure out, I feel like a lot of the things that, Michelle's reaction there, in your scenario as well, they're both reactions. And I get that in Michelle Strange's scenario that there was an identification of this is what happened. Why do I keep doing that? But she has to work backwards and then get in front of it and then change it like as she's having it. And I feel like that's such a reaction, such a hard thing to do.
It's totally not. It takes practice. So like an example, so like if I think of it, I am challenged with finishing projects, but I'm determined to figure this out. I can take the wrong actions and have more success because I'm determined. If something doesn't work, then I go, okay, let me try something else. I'm not going to go, oh, see, I can't do this. I'm calling uncle. And so it's awareness is the first step. And then it does take practice, right, Machele? It does take a little practice. And then you start going, oh, I caught myself on that one.
And the thing, like even after it happened, I was like, what I didn't do that I should have done when I woke up feeling all those things that you have taught me is like one line. Every line I put a new thought, a new feeling, a new something. And then I'd sit down and look at it and go, well, that's not a fact.
Right.
That's only a feeling. That's only a thought. Like I didn't do that. But that right there, I think is practice. Like identifying, like letting the light bulb go off, like, oh, I'm catching myself. And then when I catch myself, the habit is to get my journal out and say, I feel like this is going to go bad. It's going to go bad because of X, Y, and Z. If it goes bad, this is how I'm going to feel. Like, and writing all the things down and then going, okay, but if this happens, it'll be fine. I pivot, I change, or I go into it with that this won't happen because that's actually not a fact. That's just a feeling.
Right. Yeah. And it does take practice learning how to do those thought downloads and all of that. And I did start a pop-up Facebook group. If anybody is interested in learning how to like coach themselves, they're more than welcome to join. I assume we'll link that in the Facebook or the show notes or whatever.
The other thing that we want to tell our listeners about is that you are going to give one lucky listener 4 weeks of coaching for free.
Yes. Super fun. The only caveat is it can't be anybody I'm super close to, like Craig Dixon.
Yeah, because he listens to the podcast all the time. He's a regular listener.
We would like to think.
Does not miss an episode.
But if it's someone I know intimately, it's kind of hard to hold a neutral, clean space. So, but yeah, I'm going to offer 4-week free coaching package. That'd be 4 weekly consecutive sessions. And we'll have a link you guys can click on to enter your email address to be entered to win. Machele, will we just put on the show notes when the winner will be announced?
And we'll push it out on our social media as well. And what I think is great, though, it's not just the weekly sessions that you do for me, but it's the homework too.
It's my favorite. I love homework.
I mean, it's not always my favorite, but it makes the biggest difference.
I don't like it when her homework becomes my homework. That's what I don't like.
I have done that to you before. Here's my homework. Could you help me figure this out? It's like, help this to become my problem.
Oh, that's so funny.
So yeah, you're going to be doing that, which is amazing. And so as we close out this podcast, let's say maybe someone is dealing with, well, actually, you know what? What are your suggestions for like creating new habits right now? Because they're going to have to do it, right?
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of the morning habit stack. And if you join my Facebook group, I have a video in there that talks about it. And I also have a worksheet you can print out. But basically, like stepping out of your life for a minute and think of some habits that you can do every day that will have obviously a positive impact on your life, the compound effect of those. I totally said that all jacked up, but come up with habits that will benefit you in the long run with the compound effect. And even if they're micro habits, even if it's like 5 minutes of journaling in the morning, followed by a 15-minute workout, followed by watching a funny video, whatever it is. I have several examples in that group that you guys can check out. But just make a decision. You want to start somewhere and start small. I think a lot of people try to go to the extremes. It was something I did for years. Like I would go from not doing anything in the morning to trying to have 9 new habits and just not realistic. So start small and incorporate some of your bigger goals into the morning habit stack. So if you have a health goal, incorporate a little exercise, food planning, something like that.
I found a new app. I'm not sure if you had one that you prefer.
I use my calendar. Yeah, I'm all about the calendar.
So I found a new one called Habit Hub. And
take a
it's
look.
pretty cool because it has a timeline. So like right now, my habit stack that I created with you was I wake up, I stretch, I do like just some get my heart rate up to kind of like go like nothing big, like 5 minutes. And then I do all my face creams and my vitamins and all my water drinking. And then I take Lola for a walk. And that's my habit for the morning. And so I have one for each one of those. And I just click done. It goes ding. And I'm like, I did it. And
now, does it track the streak? Like how many days you've done it?
Yep.
Oh, that's
it'll do
fun.
it. It'll track your progress and everything. But then also there's a button for timers. So when I stretch, I'm not going to just do like randomness. Like I have it timed. So for 30 seconds, I'm going to do a quadricep stretch, or I'm going to do downward dog or something. And it calls it out to me. Like, this is what you're doing. And so then it's done. And I just click it on every day. And so now even like walking Lola, because you and I have also done this where I walk Lola and I'm like, I think it's 20 minutes and it's like an hour later.
Right.
And then my whole day is like, I can't believe I can't catch up with the day. It's like, because dumb, you said you were doing 20 minutes of walking and it was an hour 15. And you're like,
that is so funny.
So now it's like, I have it broken up in like, I walk into a certain point and it'll ding me and then I got to turn around. So it doesn't matter what direction I go in my neighborhood, and like it dings me and I turn around and walk back. And
that's so cool.
Yeah. So I've been trying a bunch because I need that reminder and I need that like something to do it for me sometimes. And I love an app. So I found this one. So far it's pretty good. And I'm only like a week into it, but Habit Hub is
that's fun. My favorite morning habit is I set the timer for 15 minutes, start Pandora, my 80s and 90s gangster rap.
Oh, yeah.
And I clean each room for one song. And it is such a fun, dorky way to start my day because like a real good music, like some Prince came on this morning while I was cleaning the bedroom. Yeah. I'm like, okay, fixing to do some work in here. And it's such a routine for me now. I'll walk through and go, God, I don't even remember making my bed.
Because you were so jamming out to some
totally.
friends.
I was like dancing for the neighbors and Chica.
Wow.
Goodness.
So I would love to direct the listeners to, unless Andrew, you have anything that you want to get into. You asked pretty good questions too. Good job. So yes. Where do our listeners go so they can get your newsletter? They can maybe even sign up if they don't win that coaching session, learn more about you and what you're doing.
The best thing to do is probably like my Facebook page. It's LifeLeap Coaching. So like that page and you'll see a link to visit group and you can click on that and I'll let you in the group there. Otherwise, you can just friend request me on Facebook. My name is spelled uniquely enough. It should be easy to find.
Which is MACH, which is why we are the Mish and Mash show.
Right. And a funny tidbit on that is my mom.
I was going to say, please tell the story.
I never really asked how she came up with my name. I thought there was like some cute story to it. And so I asked her several years ago and she said, no, the state kept misspelling your name. And so I just kept it because I was kind of busy with the other kids. And I was like, it was a typo? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, nice. That's pretty random. So yeah, typo.
So forever, I now have that misspelled name.
Totally.
Amazing.
So fun. So fitting.
All right.
I feel like we lost Andrew here.
Lost Andrew?
Yeah.
Andrew likes to zone out.
I do.
Sorry.
No, that's not true. You process things. And when you process,
that's why I hate
you have
video,
that face.
by the way.
And I told him out, I'm like, why does your face look like that right now? And he's like, oh, I was listening. It doesn't look like you were listening.
That is so funny.
My face is dumb. What can I say?
All right. Well, thank you so much, Machele. We really appreciate this advice. I know people are struggling right now, and I think your message is super timely to help them kind of get out of these thoughts and feelings.
Yes, you're very welcome. I'm honored that you had me on. It's always fun. And we didn't have any wine this time, so we were very
know. Next time. So what I am super excited about is Machele's giveaway that she's going to give a 4-week coaching session. Like that's amazing.
Huge.
So cool.
Yeah.
It's so worth it, y'all. Every week I look forward to it. She's taught me so many things, not just from like handling my life and my emotions and, even communication. And as you heard, we talked about with her, like even my struggles last year where I was trying to like run from Andrew in this business.
But she didn't succeed. Michelle did.
She didn't because
Machele Galloway succeeded with you.
she did. But, she did a really cool thing of like a pros and cons. And I don't know if I would have done that on my own or been as efficient with it because she was asking me a lot of hard questions. And I was like, oh, I wouldn't even thought of like, or gauging my reaction to things, which is really nice because she also reads my body language a lot because sometimes she'll say something and I'm like, I'll give a face, I'll give a pullback reaction of like, oh no, gross, I'm not doing that. And she's like, oh, let's dig into that. Like that's a weird, interesting reaction.
Like when you're getting a massage and you have a knot and they're like, oh, that hurts, but you gotta keep working it. And
Yep.
Well, I think also with Michele Galloway, this is so weird me saying Michelle.
The Misha Mash, yeah.
So the thing about her though is she's also dental. I know she talked about it a little bit in the episode, but she really understands the business of dentistry, the clinical aspect of dentistry, the sales, like all of those different facets within what we do with our industry. So she's a great resource, especially for you guys, our audience.
Exactly. So true. And you can find all of her information in the show notes. If you don't even win the 4-week coaching session, she's got amazing blogs as well. And then that Facebook group that she talked about. So be sure to check out our show notes so that you can get more information from and about Michele and ways to connect with her. But in the show notes will be the giveaway link, and it's only going to be good for a week. So if you guys are listening to this at a later date, sorry, you can still learn more from Michele and subscribe to her newsletter, but for the next week.
Yeah.
Anything else that you want to chit chat about?
I honestly have nothing. We're not going anywhere. We're not doing anything.
I agree. And keep tuning in. Share this with your friends. If you aren't already, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We are doing quite a few lives on Facebook, and those will be in our news feed. So if you don't catch them in the moment, you can definitely watch them later on. And if you have any comments or questions, you're welcome to send them to us at ataleoftwohygienists@gmail.com. And you can also go to our website and there's a CE button. There's an online learning center. So you can find Science Sundays. You can find Chairside Chats. You can find these live videos there as well. And all of our CE credits, well, any of the episodes that have a CE credit attached to it, you can find all that information there. And so go to ataleoftwohygienists.com for all of that info. All right, guys, we hope you have a great week. Stay healthy. We will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye, y'all. I did see a meme the other day that was like, I hope you're doing well. That was like the old email. Now it's like, I hope you're safe and healthy. That's the new, I hope everything's well for you.
Yeah. That was good.
So